Thank you so much, Mr. Maora. Hey, so accolades. Anyway, all the same, good evening, everyone. As Mr. Maora said, my name is Dorcas Kareithi, and I'll be taking you guys through this first session of social network analysis. It is just to share with you some of the other fields that we can actually apply our knowledge of statistics. And I hope it's going to be interesting and entertaining and informative as well. So this first part is just to share with you a few things about social network analysis and some of the work I have done in social network analysis. And then in part two, which is going to come later, we can see how to actually do the same things now in R. And I hope we are going to learn. I hope we get to be inspired, and we also get to see that there are massive ways to apply the statistics that we learn in class. So I'll start by just giving a brief a brief introduction about myself. Just a little bit for my undergraduate, I studied economics and mathematics. For my master's, I did biostatistics at UON. And as Mr. Maora said, I'm currently, I just started as a clinical trials statistician at Newcastle University. But before that, I was the head of research for a company called Operation Hub. And that is where I got to experience or work on social network analysis, which is what I'll share a little bit about. But before that, I did go through several years of gaining more experience. So I started as an intern, then a trainee. Interesting years those were, but I appreciate them because I got to learn so much. And then as an analyst in different positions. Yes, I also sit at the ESA Kenya. And I think some of you heard Benson when he spoke during the just concluded boot camp. So I sit there as the vice chair, but I also serve at the continental body as the interim chair. Anyway, so I wanted to give you also a little bit about myself. So my interests are definitely somehow related to statistics. So very interested in digital epidemiology and advancing statistical methods or discovering new ways of actually using statistics. And statistical literacy is basically making people understand or interpret statistics. So I love to do data stories. I love to do trainings and stuff like that. And my hobbies include traveling, playing board games, and sharing memes. I'm sure Mr. Maora has seen some of those memes, and just to make life interesting.
Yes.
Anyway, so just to share a little bit about social network analysis. So social network analysis, there are various methods of data sources that are known. And I like making my sessions quite interactive. So once in a while, I'll be asking you guys some questions, and I hope I'll get some responses. Currently in the world, I could broadly categorize data sources into two parts, conventional and unconventional. So for data sources, conventional data sources, this is data collected in a structured manner. And you'll find that these data sets these methods have been tested over time, over years, and have been deemed as credible sources. So these include things like surveys, structured databases, or routine data. And then we have on the other side unconventional data sources. These are data sources that are emerging right now with the data revolution right now. So we are finding that there are other sources of data other than what we know as the normal data sources. So most of these unconventional sources of data are used to either complement existing sources or validate these other conventional sources. And then, so just a few examples, social media data, which we'll be looking at today, and data from wearables. So there has been a lot of debate about should we trust these unconventional data sources, or should we not trust them? Can they be used to make statistical inference? Can they be used to make decisions? So there has been a lot of that debate. And at this point, I want to ask those who are present, I think I can see around 15 or 16, if we know, if someone can give us an example of either, let's start with give one conventional data source that you think is a conventional data source, and one source that you think is unconventional.
I can take a first jab already. You've mentioned that some of the examples of conventional sources are surveys. There is usually the KNBS that does Kenya population and housing surveys. They're usually common, and they're always recurrent with the KNBS. Yeah. I think I will leave for other people to suggest a conventional one.
The unconventional ones, the ones that are, yes.
Social media.
I can see Delicate is saying biometric data. So do we think biometric data is conventional or unconventional? Biometric is like the fingerprints, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would definitely classify that as unconventional because it also somehow needs to be paired with other sources of data. All right. I think I'll give you guys an assignment to go and try and research or think more about some of these unconventional data sources. And there's actually right now an interesting conversation about some of these unconventional sources, whether they can be refined or structured enough so that they can be included in our normal statistics. And then they can also be taught in schools as sources of data. So I'm just going to give another question here. I want someone to try and guess. So you know how close, how many levels of people do you need to go to, or how many levels of people do you need to know to reach someone like Barack Obama? Is it even possible to be connected to someone like Barack Obama? Well, he's Kenyan, so is there a chance?
I would say yes. I think I'm 5 people away. Because I've met
5 people away.
Met Bush.
Hey, you've met someone who's met Bush?
Yes.
Hey, Omera. So that guess is 5. Who else would like to guess how many people from Obama? Let me just take the 1-5 and say it's quite close. So there's a theory called 6 degrees of separation. So this theory states that there's actually 6 degrees between you and any other person. So this theory states that any inhabitant of the earth, which could be mostly humans, could meet anyone in the world with a maximum of 6 or fewer mutual connections between them and another person. So this means that, as Mr. Maora says, so he knows someone who has met Bush. So it means there's a very high chance maybe he only needs like 2 people to get to someone like Barack Obama. And that is basically how social network analysis came about. So from these 6 degrees of separation, there has been a lot of research in that area. And that is why, and with the wake of social media, this number has continued to reduce from 5. I think currently it's almost at 3 or even less. So it means you could meet basically anyone in the world with a maximum of 3 or fewer connections between people. And that is where the theory of social network analysis came from. So what is social network analysis? So this is basically, let me just give a few definitions before we even define what social network analysis is. So a social network is a representation of nodes or relationships between individual nodes. Now, these nodes are basically either people or schools or countries. So if countries are interconnected, you can call that a country social network. If people are interconnected, you can call that people social network. And these networks, these people that we are connecting, the schools, the states, the countries, whatever is connecting them is what is called ties, right? So it may seem something very simple, very straightforward, but it is currently a topic that is being explored a lot in the field of statistics. And you will be surprised that whatever you are learning now in school will end up being, you will see how you actually end up implementing these. Because in social network analysis, we look at the process of analyzing and quantifying relationships between nodes. So this is relationships between people, between countries, between events or places and things like that. And with social network analysis, you end up estimating the probability that these people are actually connected and using that probability in a meaningful way. So I'll just give a few applications of where social network analysis is being used right now. So in businesses, people use social network analysis to analyze and improve communication flow within organizations or with their partners and with their customers. In social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, things like that, LinkedIn, social network analysis is used. When you see that thing that says people you might know, in the back end of that is social network analysis, because they look at networks or friends of friends and then use social network analysis to recommend potential friends that or people that you might know, in addition to those that are in your contacts. In law enforcement, these social network analysis has actually been used several times to identify either terrorist or criminal networks. And then this is from the communication that they do with each other. And based on that, you can identify like who is at the middle of this conversation. And then you can use social network analysis to identify that person. And then you either arrest that person or you use that person to create a change. In civil society organizations, it has also been used to uncover or expose conflicts of interest in hidden connections between either government and businesses. So this is basically showing you the various areas where you can apply social network analysis. People like Safaricom, they use social network analysis to optimize their networks or even know where to expand based on how data is used. And then in marketing and campaigns these days, you may have noticed that maybe on social media, in as much as people are using these so-called influencers or people with a lot of following, there has been a change in that where people are using social network analysis to identify, let me call them real influencers. These are people who will actually drive impact and you'll see the results, especially for social change. So like right now when we are doing this COVID-19 campaign, etc., so you can use it to identify who are the key people to pass messages through. And then in mental health, which is where I got to apply social network analysis, it can be used to identify people who are close to either online users who are saying they're depressed or they're suicidal. So you can use social network analysis, link it with these social media networks, and that way you are able to identify the close people and you can save lives through that. So I'll give you an assignment down there and ask you to go and think of other ways you can use social network analysis. And just, I don't want to go too deep because in part 2, for those who will be interested, we are going to be looking at some of these ways of actually analyzing social network analysis, but I just wanted to expose you to some of the networks that exist. So the images on your screen, I know you'll receive these slides so you can see what is on the screen there. On your left, you have one of the simplest networks that we use. So things like influencers, we will use an analysis called Egocentric Network. to basically see who is connected to who, and that way you can be able to identify this ego. So if we are looking for an influencer, the person who is in the middle of this ego is the person that we'll be using. Then what you can see on your, I think I interchanged. What you can see, this one that looks messy, is basically a social-centric network, which is like a network of all people on social media, for example, where you can't exactly identify who knows who and who knows who. So most of the time when you're doing your analysis, you may find yourself going towards egocentric networks based on your objective. And with it, don't worry about these things, as just to basically give you an introduction about how we are going to go about the social network analysis. We are going to look at three main indicators, which is in-degree centrality, which measures how one person has initiated conversations with other people. Out degree is, in degree is how many people have reached out to me, for example. Out degree is how many people I have reached out to. And then mutual agreement is how many people I have reached out to and they have reached out to me as well. So some of these terms, they may seem a little bit complex right now, but these are the ones we are going to be using when we look at part 2. And our social network analysis right now, with the rise of social media data, is a very good chance for us to actually practice the statistics that we learn in class, specifically probability. There are very many applications of it. So as I wind up a little bit, I'm just going to say there are a few limitations that actually exist with social network analysis, because some of this data, if it's coming from social media, of course, there's some limitation in terms of accuracy, but you need to put a threshold of accuracy either based on previous literature or based on other research that has been done. And it also depends on accuracy of websites. If you're getting information from certain websites, that obviously can be manipulated. And then you need to use mixed methods. You cannot 100% do social network analysis alone. You need to add other things as well so that you improve the accuracy. And then it also needs geotagged data, because if you're going to link connections between, let's say if it is countries, or depending on why you need to use the social network analysis, you may need geotagged data, which you have come to find in Kenya is a limitation, because with the increase of concerns about the privacy of our social media accounts, most of us end up lying about where you are. For example, I don't know how many of us here have put, if it is on Twitter, you have put the exact location where you are at. So if we extract that data, we will, maybe you have said you're in USA, I'm a Colombia huko. So if we get that data and we are not able to verify it, so of course it brings down the accuracy of social network analysis. But all the same, it's an interesting method. I hope we are going to be together in part 2 so that we see how we are going to use this social network analysis. And I'm going to give you 3 topics. Mr. Maora, if you allow me, maybe whoever will be interested, they can choose between one of the 3 topics, which one they want to do, and then we can collect some data on it that we are going to use in part 2. And that is why I requested if we can have like a month between now and part 2, so that people will have collected maybe enough information or data that is good enough to perform analysis. And what you can see on the screen there is basically an example of how you should enter your data. So I think because of time, I'm going to stop there and hope that I have triggered 1 or 2 people to want to see how social network analysis works and how we can use it and the different applications, especially in the 3 topics. And I hope to see some of you guys in part 2. So back to you, Mr. Maora. Yeah, I'll take any questions if anyone has questions.
the first thing I will just ask, which is a bit of a contradiction with the other statement that you mentioned for social network analysis. So it is not always that social network analysis has to be, and let me use the word unstructured data, sort of. Mm-hmm. So it can be well organized and literally collected using statistical methods, data that you want to use for social network analysis, right?
Yes. So actually what I said is not that it's unstructured, but it's an unconventional way of collecting data. So you can, if you see the data sheet example that I shared, the data entry sheet, that is already structured. So it means we are collecting the data in an organized way, but it is not your usual source of data, for example. I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah, I get you. So it was uncoordinated data.
Unconventional, like out of the ordinary, yes. Because you see some of the data we collect, if it's for social network analysis, you collect like 2 or 3 units, or not units, variables, for example, or even 4. Like, it's not like the normal, survey has like a lot of questions for it to be a survey, and it's comprehensive enough. But for this one, because it's unconventional, it's a limited number, or it's a small number of variables that you collect, which might make it unconventional because the test, like for accuracy and all those things, that is why I said it's unconventional. Conventional has been tested over time. There's even like maybe, let's say, SOPs or things like that for conventional data.
I do have a second question. Like, does the scale matter? Like, okay. For example, if let's say we just want to conduct a social network analysis for Maseno University within Maseno University, does it matter so much, or should somebody really consider it in a larger scale, maybe the whole of Kisumu County or the whole of Kenya?
Okay. So the beauty of social network analysis, the scale does not matter. If you look at the example of topics I gave, let me just quickly like share. I hope they can both see my
let me stop share.
The first thing here, like statistical information network within the department, which means like this is somewhere like Maseno University. I'm not sure which department Mulisa falls in, but you can try and assess the flow of information, especially professional information within the department. So social network analysis is not limited by scale. You can use it in a certain setting, maybe if it's in a hospital or even a class, and you can also use it in a country case. So the country case, of course, you will have more data or more data sets. So obviously, even your accuracy will increase a lot, but scale does not limit social network analysis. It can be used for small and big settings.
My last question will be, does software matter? Or are there recommended software for it? I would assume R and Python, because you've mentioned R. What about SPSS? Do you know if it can also be used for social network analysis?
For SPSS, I'm not very sure. This is because there have been, in the development of statistical computing, people have developed packages in Python, in R, that can actually do the social network analysis. So for SPSS, unless I check, but I don't think there's actually an inbuilt thing for social network analysis, because it requires developing some of those things like the degree of centrality, also looking at correlation, things like that. So on SPSS, to be honest, I don't know, but I'm sure about R and Python because people have developed packages specifically for that.
Well, people are also thinking, I'm actually excited to see how you will put the data in, how the data will be input, because from the table you shared, I could only see 2 columns. I don't know whether that's the same way we'll put in the data. Or
yes. So you can put in the data like that, just for an example.
Just
so allow me to share.
Yeah. Oh, let me stop the share.
Allow me to just give a brief explanation of, I know maybe you can see.
As you're thinking, somebody has asked, what are the recommended packages for Python to learn social networking?
For Python?
Yeah.
So in Python, I think there's SNA.pypi. There's I can share that. I can share a list of those. For both R and Python after this call, where someone can study or maybe look at them before we do the part 2, or maybe even give it a trial before we do part 2. So I can definitely share those with you, Mr. Mawara, for you to share with the participants on this call.
Okay.
I hope that works. Yeah. So if you look at this table, you are looking at target, which is maybe the person you're talking to, and then source, which is the person you mentioned. So for example, if we're looking at the first topic, which is statistical information within the department, I get to ask maybe someone like Dr. Joyce, like, who do you go to for information on statistics within the department? And then they mention Mr. Maora. I speak to Mr. Maora and I ask him, who do you go to for information? And you mention Dr. Joyce. And then someone asks me, and then I mention 3 people. So the 3 people will be entered like Dorcas Joyce, Dorcas, Mr. Maora, Dorcas John Doe, like that. Mm-hmm. So this is just even later when you come to organize, when you are downloading data, if it's from Twitter or from Facebook, eventually it will be, if you look at the I don't want to call it the source code, this thing of the package. When you read about the package, you'll see that it first organizes the information in this manner, and then you get to do the social network analysis. So when you're collecting data, you can arrange it this way, and then we can see how to do social network analysis with the data as it is.
So there is a last question. Between R and Python, which one would you recommend? And probably you have less than a minute, like 10 seconds.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I would say both. It depends with what you're comfortable with. I don't like limiting people. So whichever you're comfortable with. I personally find R easier to work with.
So for everybody else, I will definitely upload it. And I'm already excited about having the social network study. If we can be able to do it as SASMU or as Melissa together with SASMU, it will be a very nice project, and a project that it's a bit unique even in the department.